For those of you that don't know Robert, I look around the room, I'm pretty sure everybody does, but he's not only incredibly visionary, but I think he gets how we need to get this work done. He's a tremendous bridge builder. When I think of collaboration, I think of Robert. Brings all the right people to the table, asking the right questions. I had an opportunity to go to the user-centered design session. I don't know, that was, 2 years ago? And that's what kind of led to launch, right? That was the first stage of launch. And that was one of the most exciting meetings I'd been at, where you had all of these folks from all of these agencies thinking about what they do from a person-centric perspective. Who are the people we're serving? And they had a bunch of different case studies, and that's really what drove a lot of the work. Loved working with Robert. I cannot say enough good things, and I'm not doing it justice now. I know I'm not, but it's our pleasure, and I want to bring up our team that's worked closely with Robert over the years, and Robert seemed to present our Data Champion of the Year award to Robert. So you got to get the photo out too. How did you do? We're gonna turn it over to Robert now to share his vision, talk a little bit about his journey with his team as well. So thank you, Robert.
And thank you, Nate. And it's not just me; it's a whole team back in Arkansas, not just my team. And we're all one Arkansas. That crosses agencies, that crosses sectors. But I think everything that we've done over the past 4 or 5 years has involved most of the people in this room. I first found out about College Initiative, about a SHIO convening. I've been on Applied Data Lakes training program projects with probably half of you. I think a lot of you have probably been in the programs that we put together, and then for something that Jake's about to show, like a lot of you probably contributed to the research that led to that. We flipped it around a little bit, so I wanted to kind of talk about collaboration, innovation, impact in Arkansas, but we're not there just doing cool data things. I mean, we enjoy it. It is cool, but so I wanted to start with what really makes it possible is from a collaboration lens, our voice of the customer, and our kind of collaboration champion, Mike Rogers, to kind of talk about collaboration in Arkansas and share a little bit about launches with what's possible from collaboration like that Nate just shared with the user-centered design workshop.
Since you stood, I guess I can too. This is the dream team to be in Arkansas, to get to do some cool things, some great national partners and things that come around. The unique structure that we have is not like what I hear sometimes other states receive, but being able to work with an executive order from the governor's office that created the workforce cabinet really helped start to drive this One Arkansas focus. And her start was to create a workforce cabinet. I was an employer at the time working for Tyson Foods, and I asked her in her campaign, I said, why wouldn't you run the state like a business? I was used to walking into a facility and I could see the doors for receiving over here, the doors for shipping over here, and everything that happened in the whole facility was ran by Ignition SCADA system software. I could see the safety, I could see the people, I could see the costs, the analysis, all the data, everything in one place, and we manage our business off of our metrics. And so I started having these conversations with her, and by the time I got done, she said, I know who I'd appoint, and I didn't know I was looking for a job, but I've discovered this, and many of you in the room are the same way. The things you complain about, if they didn't exist, you likely wouldn't be in your role. And to realize, the second thing I've learned from working in the trades is the best place to hide is where the work is. A lot of people won't come looking for you. And these two guys have created legacy, decades of data and reliability, speed of trust, relationship. The collaboration was there on the horsepower side, but the governor brought together today now 8 of her agencies. So I get to chair the cabinet made up of departments of commerce, corrections, education, human services, labor and licensing, our veteran affairs, transformation shared service, and now National Guard. And working at the secretary level, a lot of times secretaries don't always know what is happening within their organizations because we are very siloed. We're very vertical in our funding streams. We're very vertical in our approach, and we don't always get the empowerment to work across the directions of that change often happens. So with that being said, we've got the horizontal alignment now, the vertical alignment, and that's what some of the data does in the collaboration is getting to work diagonally with employers, the other direction with our community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, national IT partners, and it is truly a very unique system that the three of us know if we don't get this done, it's because of an excuse. We have nothing else left. All the resources are aligned, and we thank you for partnerships. Many of you in the room have caught the vision, the ideas of what it looks like to serve Arkansas, because this really is, and it started as a workforce initiative, but more than workforce, it was about people's lives. It's about their mortgages, it's about their finance, it's about their future, and we were thinking through these kinds of visions and what it takes. I don't want to get, you already know by looking at me, I'm not the data person. I am a data consumer. I'm not a data cruncher. I don't know how to do that, but these guys are phenomenal from a data scientist to the analytics side of it. But I want to meet people where they are. I know that work, meaningful work in employment brings validation. And that validation can break cycles of poverty, incarceration, substance abuse, mental health, a myriad of social problems. But getting the data to the person that can use it, that's so important to Arkansas in how we drive some of the work that's being done through the slides that you're able to see. We began with kind of a crazy guy telling what I imagined, and I said, I want something that looks like eHarmony meets Indeed. And I said, I want to make a love connection. I want a long-term relationship. Both parties are attractive. They grow in their relationship together, and we get to this place where there's something for everybody. But at the same time, I need to have a GPS, sort of a map of how to drive that meets Netflix. How do I arrange my career navigation through training waypoints, mile markers, different places like this? And I kind of started talking silly. I was closing my eyes, making funny faces, and the first person I ever met that said, I see it, was Robert. Robert said, I see it. And better than that, he said, I can do it. And it was game on after that. As I started to work with Robert more closely, I met Jake, and Jake has had a lot of background in GIS and the full mechanisms of how to make these alignments and algorithms and tags and the metadata actually meaningful, purposeful, so people can own it, because we've got to convert people into a bank account full of data that they can cash in for a currency. That currency, I've heard many people say already, I believe it's demonstration of competency. So from that, we created Launch. We're about officially released, maybe 4 weeks in. Yeah, so a lot of build, a lot of proof of concept, a lot of pilot, a lot of partners, and fast progressive growth, because it came up so quickly because the infrastructure was there. The state longitudinal data system was robust. We had some good partners. We had a lot of relationship, and it was so amazing to watch it come so quickly to fruition. But it allows for us to use the data and let each Arkansan see where they are and where they want to go. Instead of a cookie cutter spec house type thing, we're building custom opportunities for them that hides the noise. It gets them 6 clicks to a solution, and they can start referencing and sourcing all of the different resources that Arkansas has. So from that, it started kind of a simple thing. We wanted to make sure that we could make it user specific. So if somebody's transitioning out of military, everything else is hidden. If it's somebody graduating from high school, everything else is hidden. But it grows with them and allows for foot traffic to come through. And it keeps on scaling out in these concentric circles that allow us to be able to autofill forms, allows us to find people that need resources. We can't count on the people that are desperate in crisis coming to the state for a solution. They're surviving. They don't know where to find things on the internet. I don't know where to find things on the internet. How do I get to a place where we streamline a process, we build out their skill sets, their competencies, and who they are digitally, so we can bring that into region by region application for our state, and then get them connected, the engagement piece. The way that it works today is they can start building out their competencies. They can put in their information. We're working on a lot of the tags that go back to either a credential engine or Velocity Network, so that anything reported through HLC or COE or other accreditations, licensing portals, places like that, starts to build their bank account. They can bring that in, and they can start to leverage that for resources and transferability of skills. Because many of us don't always have the full purview of what we're going to become, and we take the scenic tour. So how do we create these very custom, unique paths that allows for this and then continuously improve? So it's been exciting to watch. Our first release was launched for job seekers. It came out in January of 23. We started working with our UI claimants to be able to start getting that resource and make sure that it worked really well. And after we started that, we started kind of expanding those things. But it took some of the manual paper process of mailing in forms and work search activities, all that, and automated it and streamlined it, and really took the burden off of the employer, off of the case manager, and off of the Arkansan. And that was important for us, was really to find that proposition that gave them some streamlined efficiencies in how they started working. During that time, we partnered with Google Fellows, and very grateful for the work done with Civa Forum for a common intake. And that way we could start to not just work with WIOA, our titles 1 through 4, which Jake and panel mentioned all the challenges we had there, and then also looking at SNAP, ENT, and TANF and all the different things from the DHS side, but then correction, somebody transitioning from a second chance reentry. And we started to map in a lot of their credentials and their high school work that they were doing as inmates and putting that into the credential engine so we could break it down into a competency base and show some value of what they have to offer when they come out so we can break cycles or recidivism, and working through the system like that. We expanded then launch for employers, and that's what we were able to release. So now bidirectionally, an employer can say, I'm looking for somebody of these 10 talents, these 10 competencies, and they can go find a person that has their profile turned on. They can invite them to apply. They can understand where the opportunity is, doing some work with TPM and imagining if out of our 9 engineering schools, we have one of our big emerging industries is lithium in Arkansas. Right there on the Arkansas-Texas line, we call it Smackover. We have a town in Arkansas called Smackover. But you go to this place where, okay, I don't need 20 engineers today, but I'm going to need them in 5 years. Where out of the 9 schools, where are the freshmen? What about high school? How do we start mapping people, guiding people, career navigation, career exploration, situational awareness, exposure, opportunities, and imagining themselves, because we understand that if they can't see it, that they can't be it. To inspire, to tell people it's okay to have your name on your shirt, to be able to go in and show companies how to do career pathways internally, and to create that all based off of competency. So we're intentional about the design, intentional about the upper mobility, and the transferability skills is really important as we bring that together. This is more of the information of how kind of that open source, no wrong door, interoperable solution works in our ecosystem. You can tell I've been hanging out with Robert. And I'm pretty sure, I joke with him all the time, I'm pretty sure he's got an interoperable tattoo somewhere, but I haven't asked to see it. I don't know, but he believes through and through this thing is true. Open source and creating these platforms and situations allow people to find themselves in the future they didn't even know existed. What an amazing opportunity, but it takes the collaboration, it takes the unification. It took a governor to come in and say, I want you working together as my agency, as my cabinet, and then working through the different verticals of each agency and finding the brilliant contributors that have been there. And what's unique about our situation a lot of times is we have challenges where every election swings a rope, every appointment swings a rope, every piece of legislation swings a rope, and then you've got the people that have been there for 10, 20, 30, 40 years doing the work, and every new governor, every new leader wants something different. How do we get to the place where whatever we do can survive the next election because the employers will demand it? That's our incentive, that's our ambition. We are fastidiously moving in a direction that we can get to a place of accountability and support and try to move away from some of the compliance side to where we get success. And driving those things really comes through a lot of this integrated service as we have the model shown there. We're doing a lot of other things that you might see with alignment of our state strategy, our workforce strategy, with the work that Arkansas Workforce Connections does in the WIOA plan. The same thing that our ADE, our Department of Education, does in their Perkins, and bringing all these kinds of things together, capturing any legislation that comes through, anything that we can prove out to be the answer, the solution for why we do things, If it's community service hours or work-based learning, we need some method of accountability and tracking where people are. So we try to build that into the system so we can be a user case scenario that justifies those things and it gives more foot traffic through. But a lot of different effort in those areas. And that's the exciting part about getting to work with this team in Arkansas and the people in the room that have come together. And we thank you for your work and collaboration, the vision, the aspirations that we have to make it work. We are so excited to see what can happen in Arkansas. There's not enough hours in the day, but to realize that the work that other states are doing too, that are willing to share like we are, and build out something never been done in our nation before, regardless of whatever comes through D.C. in the ink of a pen that we can't change, but build focus on the things we can and change people's lives generationally is an amazing thing. It's kingdom work, and I think it's awesome the way God brings that stuff together.
And so Mike's the vision and the collaborator and really helps set our North Star and get everyone together behind it. But Jake does a lot of what it takes to translate that into action. Mike showed you a little bit of Launch, which is, people harnessing undergrad data to serve every individual, every employer, and there's a little bit more to come there. But then Jake's worked on something he showed a little bit downstairs that early one you see, and that hopefully like some of you will maybe choose to use. That's really designed to help the program staff to serve each individual in an actionable way.
So, I always enjoy listening to Mike. This is probably the best time in my life is now because Mike mentioned people in crisis. I'm first generation. I managed to make my way to now Dr. Walker. And it's not an easy path for people that live a life in crisis. There's not a consistent path. There's not a consistent set of rules. There's not a system that someone can walk up to and go, hey, I need help, and it be able to bring all the branches of government that can have some impact on that life together. And so that desire to have a kid come from a trailer park and, consistently find a way out, and it not take knowing everything about every agency out there and just be able to go through a door and get an answer has really driven what I approach the work with Robert as we move forward. I've been involved with statewide longitudinal data systems from an education perspective, a workforce perspective. I've worked in multiple industries. I'm a kid that I've paid taxes since I was 13 years old, so I have both industry knowledge, I have state agency knowledge, university knowledge. That is what's driven me to come to this work. And my focus now is putting things in the hands of every Arkansan, be it a policymaker or a student, a parent, someone that needs education in some way, shape, or form to make a life better for themselves, to not only impact the economy of our state, but to impact their immediate economy, their community, so that we can move everyone forward. And so in this process, we've been able to make use of DDC funds from the Coleridge Initiative and be able to create what we are calling AIROS, which is the Arkansas Integrated Referral and Outcome System. We've brought together data from all 4 WIOA titles, because in our state, we have 4 WIOA titles that have 4 different data systems. And so no one could ever look and see, is this person getting services from more than one title except for 1 and 3, because they live together, but at the same time, you're mandated to serve. If you're a Title I, you're automatically being served by Title III. But we didn't know, are they getting services from Title I too? Are they getting services from rehabilitative services? Well, I was in a session just before this one where they're talking about how we're pulling, you've got to capture barriers, but then you have data validation rules that prevent people from reporting barriers. Well, what if say, for example, someone comes into Title I and identifies as having a disability, but because there's not a connection between the Title I data system and the Title IV data system, that automated referral can't happen. Or even finding that referral can't happen because the person in Title IV doesn't have access to the Title I data system. And so we brought that approach to bringing that together to meet the need of our state and our citizens and our caseworkers. And so with it, you basically can come in here, look at WIOA programs by either all of them together or individually by title or by sub-program. 1 year at a time, see what you can find as historical trends. And the example I've provided, and I find this to be probably the most impactful example that we just randomly found in this data because we finally put it together, which is when you're looking at second quarter after exit employment, we have on average 63% was the rate there, but then you looked at 2 barriers, you had someone at 58.8%. And when you look in it and you go, okay, what combinations of barriers are people finding that we are even having worse off outcomes or better outcomes? Because if they're having good outcomes, let's see what we can find, how we're serving them and maybe serve more people that way. But also, where are we having issues? And we saw this, 14.2% employment rate in second quarter after exit for English language learners that have also cultural barriers. I was like, okay, is this just a blip in time? Well, no, actually went ahead and looked at 3 or 4 years back, and this is a consistent issue. So, well, how do we deal with that now? Well, currently we don't deal with it at all because we don't know that these people are having this experience until a year and a half, 2 years later, because that's when we report the data. And so now we're able to bring that together as well as identify who in our current population of participants being served across all 4 programs meet that barrier combination. And then come in here and go, okay, these are the people, these are their unique IDs, making use of the systems we have within the ADRF, and go, this person is experiencing these barriers. Let's make sure we provide additional services so that we can improve not only our federal reporting requirements, because that's going to be something that a policymaker is absolutely going to harp on, but how are we going to help improve that person's outcome and their family's outcome? And so it's also going to allow them to reach out across to other agencies. With this, you can see there's a unique ID, which is the ID from the original data system that can then be used by that caseworker. And so in the example of the person that Disability Services comes in, sees that there's someone in Title I that has a disability flag of a barrier, and they go, oh, we could probably serve that person. So Title IV calls over to Title I, hey, this person ID such and such in your system, I see they have identified as having a disability. Maybe there's some help, some services we can help them with. And also, you know what, cost sharing. Because if we can help cover some services, it's going to make sure that you can expend your benefits to other people longer. And so it's really trying to build an integrated network, even when we're not together, because some places have the one-stops that have everybody there. Some places don't. We've had a recent reduction in the number of one-stops we have. And so between virtual and sort of this disparate locations of things, having a space where they can come in and identify who's currently going to most likely be an issue when it comes to finding employment, and let's start helping them out. And then as we move forward with this, we're starting to now look at data as someone leaves. It's not waiting until the PY changes over and you've got to do your annual reporting. So second quarter after exits people from 18 months ago, fourth quarter after exits people from 2 years ago. It's exit after quarter one. Are you employed in quarter one? Let's look at Swiss, let's look at in-state wage records. Do we find them? Yes, there's still a lag, but it's less than the 18 to 24 month lag that we've missed possibly reaching out to that person and providing services, pulling them back into the system, putting more wraparound supports around them, maybe identifying that they thought they got into a program, got some training in something, and got into the occupation and wasn't a match, or there wasn't really a good opportunity for them because something else happened. But we're going to be able to find that a lot earlier and not have to have someone wait for so long before they get the help they need to make our entire state better. So the best part of this too is that by doing this within the ADRF with the DDC project, any state can pick this up because, as I will say, Robert's favorite word, and it's one of mine as well, is interoperability, because it makes all of our lives easier. All of the files used to do this are from an interoperable, federally defined file format. So there's no modification that will need to be done. You will be able to feed file and not have to come in and change it, because it's based off the Perl, the Joint Perl, the RSA 911, which are the standards there. And so that's going to be the next thing once we get things moving forward. We're going to add SNAP and TANF and start looking at alternative measures post-exit as well. Because right now everyone's like, we got second and fourth quarter employment, credential attainment, but there's other measures of success that we need to look at. Are they reducing their SNAP benefits usage? Are they getting off of SNAP benefits? Are they getting on SNAP benefits? What happened? And if we're able to see that that's happened, we might probably need to reach out to them again. So it's becoming more of a proactive case management process rather than a reactive one, and one that sits and waits for the client to come and engage them, but it's actually really bringing it to them as much as possible. And I think that's all I have. Yes.
And so we've got a lot more going on. We'd be here all day if we talked about all of it. But those two, I like those examples because they're not just a retrospective evaluation or search. They're serving the individual today. They're a lot more like proactive and actionable. But we wouldn't have been able to build those 5 years ago. And we didn't build them overnight. And it wasn't a straight shot. Even like with DDC, like that wasn't what we set out to build with our DDC challenge. It doesn't match at all what we had written up. But, through user-centered design and a lot of those ideas, they came from the program staff saying, like, look, this is what's happening. If I just had this, that's what I would need. So I'm going to kind of talk about and I look at what I do as board, like kind of having the kitchen and the ingredients and having a productive place for the chefs like Jake to come in and like do their work when Mike places his order, and so that we can continue to like turn these things around. And so for innovation, I looked up a bunch of definitions. Innovation, I didn't like any of them, but like I just kind of thought I would use like the intentional design of better outcomes powered by new combinations of people, data, and systems, which if you look in most of the dictionaries, it is like new combinations. It's like invention's when you make something totally new. Innovation is when you're combining, things that already exist maybe in a way that's giving you better outcomes. And so I think that's largely what we're talking about doing here. And with the ADRF, it's like let's combine our ideas, let's combine our code, let's combine our data to drive impact. So what made AIROS possible? And really, it's on the slide, but the original genesis for this came 5 years ago at the very first college convening. DOL ETA did a presentation, and they teased us with a little bit of information about the study they did on the co-enrollment outcomes of TAA and dislocated worker, and showed like, oh, look, when they're co-enrolled, they get better outcomes. And then they showed a bunch of maps of like SNAP and adult ed and like every possible combination of like programs you could think, and just showed really just by the states what percentage. And it was clear like it's different. It's different all over the place. So clearly, well, what combinations are good? And so, that was that. It left that little nagging like, but now we want to know the rest. We want to see that TAA dislocated worker thing for everything. And so when we did, use Workforce Data Quality Initiative, and that's what we're really looking at. But then also when we started round 8, we said, well, what everyone do in round 7? And we talked to our good friends in Wisconsin, and especially Brian, Ellie, and Amy, and like everything that they did. So we weren't starting from scratch. We took their round 7 stuff because they had put together this whole episode of episodes with like how everything goes together. And so we built from that instead of just starting and duplicating effort. And then many of us were part of that journey because it was a really nascent space as far as research on co-enrollment and integrated service delivery. I think a lot of these data probably had never been brought together before, much less looked at. So with the enrollment to employment program that we started with 2 classes at WDQI, but DOL and NASWA were so good in helping to extend that out because there was such a response to 5 cohorts. We had over 170 participants from 26 states, probably a lot of you, like come together and like, work on integrated service delivery together and come up with like so many new insights. It was about 30, research papers that are just so good. It's a lot, but it's really, really good. So much good stuff. And over the 5 cohorts, we were getting lit reviews from later projects referencing the first projects. Because every project ends in like, and these are the next questions that need to be asked. And so the next team would pick those questions up, and they, we would get that virtuous cycle innovation. So that's what gave us a lot of the body of knowledge to really kind of like say, okay, now we've figured out like, is co-enrollment good? The short answer is basically this, yes. And how and where and kind of enough of a driver to do something like AIROS, and especially we presented it to our stakeholders, which we then, activated through Democratize Our Data Challenge. So it's like most of the things we're talking about today that all kind of like led over time up to AIROS. And And, I think where we had started, we were originally inspired by Illinois' products. Hopefully someone will see AIROS today and say, that's cool, but like, could it do this over here? And like, next year we'll be talking about like another cool product that we would have never thought of. So that's, as far as launch, what made launch possible, we didn't start from scratch because we don't have time to do that. We started on an open source foundation from a nonprofit that is already deployed in New Jersey and Colorado and Hawaii and Ripple, and we just built on it from that. But we started with that foundation. We did the user-centered design workshop that Nate and others joined us with, and our cabinet secretaries, legislators, et cetera. We weren't talking about data and systems. We had they went to the empathy mapping process. We gave them personas, and then they really got a feel for it. And then they made 2-year headlines. What do we want the headline to be in 2 years? And then we just started working back from that. Okay, how do we make that possible? And then we didn't just stop at the workshop and we'll see you in 2 years. Mike pulled together it averaged about 40 people once a month. We get together for half a day and just keep going through it. Bringing in Medicaid, bringing in community-based organizations. We met at the State Chamber of Commerce. We kept the business involved. So it's like intentionally cross-sector, intentionally like continuous design. I always say that launch isn't my platform. It's not Mike's platform. It's when I'm in Arkansas, it's like our platform. It's and I pretty much challenge everyone every time. It's like, you can't just speak now or hold your peace. It's like, if you have an idea, bring it. Let's fix it. And I always say it's better than it was yesterday. Like, you got to help us make it better tomorrow. But we intentionally built something that's state-owned, running on state administrative data with state control, so that we can continuously evolve and we're not like stuck in anything. The shift to skills first practices, that came from a National Governors Association skills-driven states community practice, where we learned everything we need to know about credential transparency, learning employment records. It's like the power of community and collaboration is one of our biggest assets over all the technology and even data. And then we did everything we could with interoperable standards. It helps us, and it helps us to kind of leverage things. I've already got my eyes on things out of the LCDS community of practice that I want to implement on top of SEDS. That's one reason we're doing SEDS. It's like Northern Marianas Islands built some cool stuff that I want to use. But then also we'll build cool things on top of SEDS, so it's plug and play, like Jake said. So these foundations, it's that user-centered design, at least it's collaborative development, including collaboration amongst all of us, interoperability, governance, which is key. And governance isn't the goal; it's the enabler. It kind of lets us do it, for value and utility, but do it safely. Integrated funding strategies. That's really important because my job as CDO and starting out with legislation was essentially breaking down silos, deduplication of data and effort. But come from a Six Sigma black belt background, so it's like I do my root cause analysis, and why do we have data silos? Funding silos. So let's not flail at the symptom, let's go after the root cause. And so that's where things like the field guide for financing integrated data systems, the braided funding strategies, and things like that really help to remove some of those barriers to let us kind of not present the system fragmented to individuals, but do it in that one doorway that Mike talked about. But fortunately, a lot of this stuff, it exists now. We're all in a better place than even we were a year ago because these things exist. We have all of these new assets. They're open, they're interoperable, they're usable. As far as a little teaser, kind of what's next for Arkansas, because if you're doing the same thing, let's work together. Let's not duplicate efforts. I think I already had heard Todd mention that he might be working on this first one. So we're working on launch for students right now. The first phase comes up July 15th. That's really starting in K through 12 for that individualized student success planning, navigation, LER base. It kind of moves with them through learning and work, and we're building it from the beginning to work for SNAP IEPs, for post-secondary success planning, for just a lifelong learning and work kind of GPS type of thing. But anyone who's interested in that, let's build that together. Prison education program study. This year, we're doing a lot of work in the criminal justice space, but from a broader lens, not just recidivism, like education, workforce, housing, human services, all the things across the whole sequential intercept model. Homegrown Heroes Workforce, fortunately, we have another hero in our state. Our Adjutant General of Arkansas National Guard just has a great military workforce strategy, so we're really leaning in. And he said they're willing to do the work to start doing credential registry publishing for all the military occupations and all the military learning opportunities and things like that. We're willing to do that, but it's the same thing in every state. Like, we'll divide up the work. So if anyone wants to like work with their National Guards, their military, to like divide it up, let's split it out, and we can all get there faster together. Jobs employment data exchanges in testing phase now. Anyone that wants, please come observe. We're kind of doing it synthetic data. There's a test harness, so you can kind of see how it works, so that you can just like come and learn about it. I'm going to share a link, and then later this year, Brian Grady and I will be starting to kick the tires with actual real data, and then hopefully we can come back next year and tell you outcomes and benefits and how that's working for us. We're working in a new partnership with Tennessee and our National Science Foundation grant to look at STEM pipeline attrition, but we're doing it in ADRF. We're doing it off of interoperable standards. I don't know if it's shareable yet, but there is an amazing literature review that's just the best thing for this room. And so that's something to look forward to. And I think that, and we're being intentional about, like, let's not just make it STEM pipeline. We're constantly seeing pipeline studies. Let's try to build something replicable for all the different pipeline studies. AI, I lead our state's AI efforts, but I'm probably talk the least about AI, but like, that's definitely there. To not go down that rabbit hole, I think AI is only as good as the data. That's going to make what we do so much more important so quickly. And it's kind of like bring other funding sources, other use cases, other value propositions. So I think like kind of learning that storytelling around why integrated data systems are the key unlock for getting the value out of AI is something that we should be talking about. And then maternal health, social determinants, or social factors of health, that's and at least in our state, because of Z codes, the light came on that 60% of healthcare outcomes and costs are related to like social factors outside of health and human services. So that's, again, with the storytelling, it's like that's a lot of costs. Go after the biggest bucket of cost, and then you can use that. It's an easier sell, and then we can open up other doors. But how can we build this future together, and the things that we haven't thought of yet that you have or you're already doing? So like for states, let's share, build, and learn together. Federal agencies, support and promote the use of integrated data. I always hold up education and labor as kind of a shining example of like, just a few page PDF document, but they said, here's how you integrate education and workforce data, and through the different roles and navigating FERPA and all these things, like this is how it's done and this is how it's safe. If we just had that for like every combination of thing, we would all be in a better shape. They're like sending those clear signals. Also removing barriers, real or perceived, to funding. Thanks to the wonderful work of Perry Sabzi and Kathy Sack, OMB has issued clarified guidance on the use of braiding of federal funding for integrated data system and evaluation and research. We could always do it. They just weren't explicit about how. Now it explicitly says how, and now there's a field guide that says how to do it. But there's probably we run into that a lot in the state because there's not something that explicitly says you can do this. The assumption is we can, or it changed and nobody got the memo. So sending clear signals about the importance of bringing the data together to treat the whole person is very, very helpful from the federal level to change the culture. And then for funders, obviously, there's the uncertainty we talked about. There's a lack of data. There's a lot of things we can do with braided funding, especially once something's established and operational and it's serving the program and we can use 90-10 match, et cetera. But there's a lot of things that federal funding doesn't support. And so standing things up, like doing the innovation, bringing together convenings like this, that's where the magic happens. And that's where the federal funding doesn't really fit in that box. And so that's the role of philanthropy has just been instrumental in everything we've done in Arkansas for like the benefit of the convenings and the collaboration, doing kind of innovation, getting things to the point that we can sustain them. And also just, things like we have Google.org fellows, and we work along together. And it's not just the products that we develop that are kind of state, city, county, but like we learn from working alongside them. So, someone spent Google for 5 years, by the time to become a Google fellow, like they kind of know how to do software development and things like that. So now as we're doing cloud application development, we got together with Google fellows to say, what are best practices for continuous integration and continuous development in cloud? And so it's also opportunities to like learn from the best. I put together a Google Doc at this site that's just got a lot of different kind of resources for things, that a lot of which are open source and free and available, like Civiform. Like you just go get it, open source, use it today, add cool stuff, we will use it, we'll add cool stuff too. The administrative data research facility, the multi-site data collaboratives, other things you've heard Jason Tishko talk about this morning, like JetX, talent pipeline management, lots of good resources there, like our credential registry, which is a super unlock for the SLDS, because the SLDS has a degree, but doesn't say what that means. With the credential registry, like Mike talked about, with our Arkansas Correctional School District, our correction system just had someone got this credential. Mm-hmm. And then no one knows what it means. But now we know what are the learning opportunities, what are the certificates, what are the pathways, what are the competencies. Across our 21 Arkansas Correctional School District CTE certificates, there's 601 competencies. And they're things like can read a tape measure. And that adds up. And there's more complicated ones. But I mean, Mike, have you heard employers say, just show me someone that can read a tape measure? Like that's the language of the business. And so it helps them to know and tell their skills story in the language of the business. So if you're interested in any of these things, you want to collaborate, like we're all going to get there like faster together. So kind of my challenge to you is let's just keep innovating together.